Hello, everybody. Just getting us live here. Perfect. I don't know, Facebook is crazy sometimes. Here we go. Okay, just making sure I can see all the comments and we're good to go. Talked about, I'd speak sexual stuff that I feel called to teach and discuss in this world, and I'm going to share some of it. Let's start with, I hear a lot of people talk about their sexual experiences with their partner and how negatively they've been, that their partners are kind of dumping their negative energy into them, or that people are not taking it seriously, or other things. And I hear it stated all the time. It's like men aren't conscious enough, men aren't moving forward, men aren't coming into pleasure and sexuality with a woman, that sometimes men are dumping their negative energy into them, and it can go both ways. And I'm going to suggest something new so that people can start taking self-responsibility. If that's the people that we're attracting into our life, and that's our experience of our sexuality and our pleasure and merging with another person, it's showing some stuff inside of us. We're bringing into our lives mirrors of some of what we have. We're also bringing into our lives lessons. We're bringing in people that are showing us some reflection of ourselves so that we can move forward. And I'm also going to say, sometimes, yeah, you have those experiences and it's nothing about that. It's about sovereignty. And that's what I want to talk about here. So when I speak of sovereignty, I think of ourselves as let's say you're a bubble of energy. And that bubble of energy is basically our aura and our field, and how complete we are and how much integrity we are basically shows how much light we shine, how comfortable, how confident, how happy we are in life. And when we lose sovereignty, and it happens very much, we give parts of our heart away, we give love, we give attachment to other people, we give up our boundaries, we do things for people to try and please them and make them stay with us and keep loving us, and all these kind of things. And we start giving up little pieces of ourselves. And instead of doing things for self-love, we're now doing things to please and to feel love from someone else. And sexuality is the craziest piece, because there's so much programming, there's so much shame, so much guilt, so many things that are saying that we're not worthy of love, we're not supposed to feel it, we're not good enough, or we have to give a part of ourselves to that other person so that they'll give a part of themselves to us. And it's all false programming, because it's nothing about that. It's about finding the love and self-respect within ourselves first before we give to anyone else. We have to give from our excess if we're going to self-love first. If we give a part of ourselves away and say, let's say most relationships, a lot of times you're giving away 50% of yourself. It's like half of you is going to them in the hopes that they're going to give you half of themselves so that you'll both feel full. And now you're a part of each other. Guess what's happened to your sovereignty? You're like a yin and a yang. Let's imagine yin and yang. You're kind of like that. Well, okay, you give apart this piece, and now he comes in with his piece and matches up to your piece. Are you sovereign? Are you doing things for your best interest? Are you doing things to please them, to make their best interest be met? And that's the flaw I see in some of this stuff. The turn down, the frustration, the anger is we're giving a part of ourselves to that other person in the hopes that they're going to bond with us. And sexuality is a way to do that. And I know, based on my experience with some women, that's a way to get a man bonded to them so that they're part of their life and they're going to keep them safe and they're going to respect them. And then in our programming, in our society, this is all kind of mangled up. I'm not saying that's the right thing or that's the way it should be, but it comes from our genetic lineage or whatever. It's like, okay, I want somebody to keep me safe, and I want them to be sovereign to me, and I want them to only be my partner. And then we get into these mixed things where jealousy happens and all these crazy things. But the act of sharing sexuality sometimes becomes this bonding and this attachment issue, and then you're not sovereign. It's like, okay, I had expectations on how this experience was going to be, and I want something that maybe I haven't said, like safety, protection, or sex, love, pleasure from the man's side. And both sides are going in without any agreement on what it is, but we all have this programming inside of us. Like, okay, if you're Catholic or whatever, that's my experience. The religion will say, okay, well, you're bonded to that woman for life once you've shared sexuality, and that's part of marriage, and shame comes in, and all these other mixed things. And then we share this merging experience with another soul, a woman or a man, and all these imprints of our beliefs, our programming, our religion, what our parents think, what our friends might think. Am I going to be a slut, or am I going to be a player, or all these things come in and they're superimposed on it. And you're just like, what the frick is all this? This is driving me nuts. I didn't agree to this. And guess what? You're now attached to that other person, because when you share sexuality, there's penetration, the lingam and yoni and all this stuff, you merging with another being, and you're becoming one being for that period of time when you're sharing pleasure. Now, what are your expectations? What are your beliefs? What are the things that are inside that are going on? I know some women will say, okay, that's my temple. He's entering my temple. And beautiful. It's your belief, your whatever. But once that has been happened, what other things are attached to it? It's like, thank you, Colleen. Beautiful. I hope you enjoy what you see. But can you imagine all the expectations that have come that haven't been stated, that are in an experience like that? And you lose your sovereignty, because now all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, this happened. I gave of my body, and I whatever, or the man's like wanted an expectation of just a hookup or whatever, because he was in lack or in need or whatever. And then there's these mixed ideas, but nobody ever talked. So sovereignty has to come in a couple different ways. So I'm going to make some suggestions that'll help, and it'll leave people clearer afterwards. And I also want to suggest that any act of sexuality has some consciousness to it and negotiation. This may feel gritty and uncomfortable at the beginning, but it's going to save you a lot of grief afterwards. Like having a discussion beforehand. It's like, I want to share sexuality with you. I have an expectation that once we share sexuality, that we're now bonded, and I'm going to be jealous if you share sexuality with anyone else. These things are in our head, but never voiced. And then the man may say, well, geez, I want more regular sexuality, and I'm willing to commit to you so that we have that bond. And I'd love to share it more often. But he's like, oh, I don't want to put her off, or I don't want to be uncomfortable. So there's all these mixed messages that are going on in the background, and everybody gets sad afterwards because none of them are met, because they were never stated. There was no agreement. Somebody walks away, or they feel this off energy, and then it never continues. And then a woman feels jilted or whatever, that maybe that man was just using her or whatever, but there's some energy that nobody really agreed. So this mixed up story that wasn't even true happens. And then all of a sudden it's not being shared anymore. And this guy or girl did something bad to me or whatever. So there's one piece, having a conversation. I'm working on writing up a bit of a relationship contract, some questions that should happen before any sexuality that I want to share. I'll do some more lives on it going forward, but how does this going to work? What's the expectations? How this going to feel, and where's it going to proceed from here? Simple things like that. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the act of sexuality. Do you build a container with your lover? I'm going to guarantee, unless you're your partner is a virgin, that they're probably going to have some attachments to past lovers in some way, shape, or form. And I'm going to guarantee you probably have some attachments as well. Unless you've done a lot of really deep work, there's stuff there. And if it's not attachments with past lovers, it's maybe your parents, it's maybe a rape, a trauma, or some other thing where some element of your sexuality has been involved. So we got to build a container before we start to sit down. And some of that negotiation of what's going to be done, how it's going to work, how this is going to move forward, do you expect to be attached afterwards, etc., can all be discussed. So it's out in the open. And basically how I do that is I sit down with a lover and I sit across from them. You can be naked, you can be whatever, or just whatever. Just sit cross-legged. I like to put a nice like white blanket or a sheet down on the floor and make it ceremonial. Maybe put a candle, maybe some Palo Santo. And you start off building this beautiful container with your lover. Look into their eyes, breathe with them, and then start to make a bubble. Use your hands and your arms and kind of put your arms out and build a bubble above and below you, and then around and around and until there's a complete beautiful glass bubble around you and the whole bed, the whole room, just making sure that nobody else's energy is involved. It gets rid of the darkness. It gets rid of the attachment that maybe our parents have put in there. And then in that bubble, start taking out stuff that you don't want there, like shame or guilt or being a slut or a player or whatever, all the things that are coming up in your heart that maybe you're uncomfortable about and this isn't making it feel good. So take all those things out. And then I want you to, once you get that and you feel complete, do it kind of popcorn style where you each share one, but make it so that if somebody doesn't have one right now, just keep sharing and sharing and sharing until the bubble's clear. And then when you're complete that, then start bringing stuff into the bubble that you want. You want pleasure and fun and freedom and innocence and purity and play and orgasms and beauty. And just keep doing that. And you can also make a declaration that all past lovers, all energies, attachments, etc., are outside the bubble for the performance of this act of merging and fun. And then proceed into maybe talking about what you want to have and maybe set a container to say, okay, we're going to have some pleasure tonight and we're going to make it for a couple hours. And I'd love to do this and I'd love to do that. Give some ideas or maybe just speak about what you want first and then do it popcorn style as well. It's like, okay, I'd like to have some oral beforehand and I'd like to touch and pleasure and I'd love to do all these things and just set a container of what you want. Because if you say it out loud, then your partner is going to be like, oh, they want that, or I'd like to explore a little bit, or you're setting some gentle boundaries maybe. And then you go into performance of your sexuality and you just enjoy it, you feel it and the pleasure. And now the most important thing is when you get to done that sexuality, if you have the time to have that closing container, maybe you're exhausted or whatever, and it's not so easy, but you need to close the bubble. You need to close the container. You need to close the act of merging. Because what happens, it's like, okay, you're having sex and you're in your partner and sharing each other's energy and you get to the end of it and you've merged and you're feeling all this cosmicness and all these kind of things. How do you detach? How do you get back to your sovereignty? And this is where a lot of those energies that are left laying around start to get felt because a part of you is now physically attached, energetically attached because you had a physical act with your partner. When do you close that? When do you clear that? When do you end that? Because you agreed to have a sexual act with that person. You agreed to try something, explore, expand, etc. When did you finish it? How often at the end of sexuality do you say something simple like this? I release you. Poof. Bang, what's going on? Okay, all the attachment is gone. The closure of the bubble. I release you, takes you out of the bubble, takes you back to a place where you're no longer merged with that other person. You no longer have all these unstated expectations that are grabbing on because you've released them. And this is powerful, powerful shit. It will change your sexuality because there's no reason to stay bonded or merged or obligated or anything to a partner unless it's outwardly stated. But a lot of times we're doing it and we're not even stating it and we're carrying around our partner and all their shit and all their suffering and pain and we're energetic beings. What if 20% of me stayed with my partner and 20% of my partner stayed with me because we didn't know how to release it all. As an empath, I'm going to feel her all day. I'm going to feel her shit and her pains and her wounds and all this kind of stuff. And if I'm not consciously aware of this, I'm going to say, oh, they dumped all their shit in me. Well, they didn't. You're now attached to them. You bonded, and yeah, physically attached too, but energetically, until we've made that declaration and come back to our sovereignty so we can process what showed up for us. And I'm going to guarantee emotions came up, maybe past traumas, all this kind of shit are within us. And we just got to take our piece and do our work with what showed up. And it's going to make it more powerful the next time we meet that partner. Because with them, you can do all this kind of stuff. You can share the shit without having to be physically merged with them. And thanking each other. I like that, Colleen. Beautiful. Same thing, thanking each other. But we need to say the release word, because there's a lot of shit going on in our brain that we're not consciously aware of, that our subconscious beliefs, our programming from our parents, programming from our religion, programming from all this kind of stuff. And just say, I release you. And it doesn't have to change anything about the bond of the love, the relationship, etc. Just release the energy. Because do you need to have somebody sitting like a parrot or a good angel, bad angel sitting on your shoulder, 20% of them with all their shit and all their worries or whatever? No, you agreed to a conscious act of beautiful sharing. And the more and more you can become sovereign afterwards, the more and more you deal with your stuff only. And you don't need to deal with your partner's stuff. You need to give them a grid and a held container that they can explore. And if shit's going to come up, it should come up after the sexuality, before you break the container. Oh, I'm really sad, or stuff from my trauma or my rape or my past is coming up. That's the place where it can be consciously held. And you decompress all that stuff that showed up. This should be a last step before you leave. It's like, hey, did anything show up? What's you feeling in your body? Is there anything weird going on? And you're going to find magic, because that opening, that merging, that sharing of deep, intimate space with another person, we can't get that anywhere else than in an act of almost sexuality with another person. That's the most intimate we're ever going to be. We can have a really deep conversation, but the minute two bodies emerge, there's something beautiful there. So keep this in mind when you're starting to feel your partner. Have you disconnected from them? Has all this stuff been cleaned up before you start saying, okay, well, there was something wrong with my partner, or they're just a dumping ground in me, or whatever? No, get sovereign afterwards. Get back to yourself and be really communicative afterwards. Hey, I felt this. I felt a lot of really negative energy in the middle of it. Maybe you're not feeling so well. Would you love to talk about it? Because if it's stuck inside of them, and especially men, because they don't talk about this kind of stuff. I know girls or women will talk more about it with their friends and stuff, but where's a man get to be intimate and share about his sadness and his uncomfort and all that kind of stuff? He's carrying along a bunch of toxic shit and just needs a way to hear it be said. And nobody needs to carry it. It's just like women want. They want a man to hear them, but not fix them. Well, sometimes a man just needs to be witnessed saying, holy fuck, this was really hard. My last relationship had this or whatever. So it can be done. And women need it too. But men don't get it as often because they're misunderstood in that way. They are vulnerable. They do have emotions. They need a beautiful conduit and a held space that can allow them to explore, to go into what's not feeling good in their body, and then magic can happen. So are you sovereign in your sexuality? Do you create that container, only allow the energy of your partner in with you at that time? And I'm talking both men and women. And I told how to create the container a little earlier. Go in, create that, build that space, build that held container, share your sexuality. You're going to find it's way deeper. We can talk about adding grounding to that and touch and sensuality first. So you get in the body, and then you share this act of really deep orgasmic bliss with another person. And then at the end, Watch what energy's percolated up. Give a container for your partner to explain, holy shit, I had some of this past trauma show up in my life, and I'm glad that you're here. I was crying, but at the same time, I was feeling pleasure. And release that emotion. Amazing shit will happen because your body is just closed off and it's just waiting for a safe place with somebody. Well, guess what? You can shut off the darkness. You can shut off all the lineage trauma. You can shut off all the other shit that's fucking up your sexuality by creating this container at the beginning. And nobody's allowed in here. Now, all of a sudden, you can be yourself and nobody can siphon your energy off. Nobody can fuck with you. And then when you get till you're done and it's like, fuck, that was amazing. I love you. Honor your partner by thanking them and then say, I release you. And I'm looking forward to the next experience. It's not go away. I don't want you anymore. I'm releasing all your energy so you can go and explore everything that you experienced. And I don't need to be part of that energy. But if the experience was beautiful, let's do that again. Maybe we say that at the end. It's like, hey, I'd love to share that experience again. If you're not feeling it, maybe be honest. Hey, it was a little traumatic. A lot of shit was coming up or whatever. I'm going to have to sit with this for a little while. But don't just leave your partner hanging. If you're worried about releasing them, well, give them a like, wow, that was really amazing. And it was really deep. And I never had a container this deep or whatever. Let's talk about it again or whatever. I'm still processing. I'm going to tell you right now, a lot of us are walking around with pieces of our old partners hanging off us, whether we broke up with them or whatever. And it's screwing up your ability to have pleasure, screwing up your ability to go deep, screwing up all the things that you need to heal because you never let them go. So building this container, we can talk in another video about how to release old past lovers, how to release all those traumas. But the more you're going to be intimate with another person and you're going to start to share sexuality, you want a container that doesn't have a whole bunch of lurkers in the background watching you share your intimacy with this new person. And they're going to frick you up. I will tell you right now, they will distract you. They will make you feel shame and they'll do all these things because we never knew to let go of them. So sovereignty is a very important thing if you want to explore your full range of your sexuality. So hopefully this helps. If there's questions, always put them in below. Thank you for all the beautiful comments from Colleen and Haiti and anybody else that's been watching. I love seeing the thumbs up and the happies and the hearts. And Colleen says, thank you for these reflections. So in my experience, this is really important stuff. So try it out. If it doesn't work out or it gets clunky or whatever, let me know. We can talk about it. Yeah, I thank you all. I love you all. I hope this helps and wish you a very great evening.